Hey everybody, join me for a quick plant tour. Hey TikTok, I am just gonna do a quick plant tour. It's night here, so I've got all my grow lights on. They are just a little bit, sometimes the sync on the shutter gets a little weird, so I apologize if you start to see some flashes. I'll do my best to mitigate that. But if you've got any questions as I'm walking around, you see a plant you like, you want to talk about it, just tell me. So this is kind of the main room of my apartment. It's not super huge. My kitchen's over here, but I've pretty much packed as many plants in here as I possibly could. Just down this hallway is my bedroom, and I'll take you all in there in a minute. That's where I've got my hydroponic tower, but I've got a bunch of other hydro plants out here that I'm growing, as well as a bunch in soil. I think in total I got, oh gosh, I don't remember, somewhere between 75 and 85 now in this little apartment. But I just wanted to give you a quick look at what's going on. So, a lot of people have a number of rare things and they have really cool collections. What I've really focused on is just trying to find common things that fit really well in space. So down here, just a regular old Pothos. This I like to call Bruce's arm. It's a cutting from another one over here that's just barely sticking out, as you can see. But Bruce's arm has given me two pups, one of which is right here growing in some water. Right behind it is a Monstera cutting. I did a chop of this on the TikTok a little while ago. And this is a big Monstera. This happened to be a little one that I got. And you can see, it's just starting to come out. This was a little tiny node, but I think the coolest part about this is just the roots that are going in here. Monsteras have these crazy roots and just get so thick. So my biggest problem when these were growing in dirt was that they'd always get too big for the darn pot. So I actually really like watching them grow in soil, or sorry, in the water. I'll show you a couple more. These were all rescues I got from a plant store. They were left for dead. I think I got this giant Monstera for about $5 because no one thought it was going to live. But I chopped it up and put it in water, and it's just been living in there ever since. This guy has got some real nice roots going on. As you can see, it's got a new baby leaf. These ones were part of the other chop I did. They just started sprouting out. And the cool thing about this too with these Monsteras is, this one has a root that's sticking down, but I can do this in the leca, which just looks, alien and weird. And it's something I really like. You can see, here it is. It's just starting to figure itself out. Oh my gosh, I love it when they're first coming out. I've got another, I guess this is a Monstera tour now. Another Monstera up there growing in water. I've got a few more over here in my jungle corner. This was another rescue, as you can see, definitely not dead. But this one back here, we call Bret Hart, and it's ginormo. So I think I have 8 Monstera deliciosas in here. Got a few Adansonii kicking around as well. There's one in the middle there. That is kind of our Monstera stuff. So what is in all the water in these jars? Somebody asked, what's in the water with the plants? It is a master blend nutrient thing. It's actually a generic one that a lot of hydroponic growers use. And we use it because it comes in powder form. It's really easy to mix up. It doesn't smell. There are other natural, more organic things that you can use to put in the water for your plants to have nutrients. The problem with those is that they smell really bad. Just to be completely honest, they often smell like fish or, fish byproducts. And if it's in my house and especially the hydroponic tower, I'll show you in just a second, in my bedroom, I can't deal with the fish poop smell all night. So, that's what we use. It's a master blend nutrient. Actually, if you look at the link in our bio, we have a grow kit that has all of the nutrients in it, and you can see a full breakdown of what's in our nutrients if you follow the link on our bio to our Etsy shop and look for our grow kit. Someone's asking about an Alocasia poly. Has one leaf left. Will it sprout more leaves? The interesting thing about So an alocasia is an aroid, and so I've got a ton of aroids. This giant Rhaphidophora in here, over here in the corner, that's an aroid. That's Pothos there is an aroid. The Philodendron Gigantum up there is an aroid. There's another one over there. All of the aroids, you know, that I've seen, if they've still got a leaf on it, that leaf looks pretty good. What matters is probably more than anything the root health. So if the roots are strong and healthy, even though it's got like just one leaf on it, it's probably going to spit some more out. I mean, the propagated nodes on these didn't even have a leaf, and here they go. Because what really matters is the health of the roots more than anything. And it's really hard, especially in soil, to know exactly what's going on. Sometimes the soil gets compacted, other kinds of problems. But yeah, that's if you can kind of like check and see, are the roots healthy? Do you smell any rot when you go in there? Root rot is a consistent challenge. So, especially if you're growing in dirt. But one place that doesn't have root rot, probably the reason you're all here, is to see the hydroponic tower. So I'll take you back into my bedroom where I've got that going on. This like legit is my bedroom. It's a little bit, got some clothes out, I guess. So this is my home hydroponic tower. I apologize for the lights and the refresh rate on my phone. Sometimes I just get a little out of sync and you get those lines. But this is the hydro tower that I have. As you can see, I pulled the lettuces and cabbage off of it. You may have seen that video. And so I immediately planted some new stuff, and I'll talk about that really briefly. So just to give you a quick tour, right up there at the top, ooh, I'm so sorry about that. If I get the right angle, it'll stop. I'm gonna back up. Okay, there we go. Right up there at the top, and I'll get closer a little bit later, is African Nun Basil. It has just this really interesting, you know, with basil, you can kind of rub the leaves and give it a smell. Really interesting kind of different basil. It doesn't taste like any basil that I've ever had. I've never had it that I know of, and I'm really excited to do something with it. One of the really fun things that we like to do is buy rare and heirloom seeds. So the other little plant up there to the right that you can see just is getting sprouted, that is this Japanese Swiss chard. I've had Swiss chard before, but I've never had this variety of it. And so I bought some heirloom seeds, and yeah, so where do I get my plants to grow? Most of the time I get them from rareseeds.com, Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company. They're in Missouri. They're my favorite place because everything I've gotten from them has grown great. I've never had bad seeds, and everything has been delicious and fun to grow. Is it always bright in my room? When the lights are on, yeah, it's bright, but it's not unbearable. I do actually, this is where I have my 9 to 5. So it's totally doable. And if it were too bright, I wouldn't be able to. So one of the nice things about this is the lights are bright, but they're all pointed away from me. So that does help. Just to continue the other few plants on the tour, this guy is Wasabi Arugula. And I don't know if you like wasabi, but when I first picked off a leaf to taste it, oh my God, it was wasabi. It tasted just like the stuff you get now, probably not real Japanese wasabi. Okay, so if you're like thinking about the stuff that actual chefs grind off as actual, it's not quite that. If someone knows how to adjust my frame rate, I would gladly do that. I'm fighting this. Whew. Yes, if anybody has any advice on how to deal with this frame rate issue, I would definitely take it. But it tastes crazy like wasabi. I've never had a plant where you just put it in my mouth and whoo, there we go. So do I turn the lights off ever though, before I get on to the next one? Yes, absolutely. So I have these on a timer. They're on for 12 hours a day. They're off for 12 hours a day. So an interesting thing about plants is that they absolutely have to have darkness. If they don't have the dark, they don't do well. So Mandy has hers on in another room where she's not in as much, for 18 hours and off for, well, 6, that's 18 plus 6 is 24. So but the plants do need a time of dark. Yes, it is the light. Unfortunately, the refresh rate of these lights is like exactly what the shutter is, and so it's super annoying to look at. I'm so sorry. Here, but we're just gonna back up one more time and try to get rid of that. Sorry, everybody. This is the first time I've shot this direction, so I'm gonna stand back here and just talk about these for a little bit. The one right here, there are some Japanese onions, and I'll pull those out so you can look at them. Right below that is a horseradish. Those are strawberries. There's a little tiny pepper plant in there. And that giant thing in the middle is a kale. That was actually the one I cut the crown off. A lot of people on our other videos said, no, don't pull the whole lettuce out. You can cut and come again. It's like, yeah, totally. That's what I do with my kale, cut and come again. And then when it gets too long, I just snip off the crown, stick it back in the pipe, and in 4 to 5 days, I've got some roots started and it's going again. Just to give you an idea of why I do that, I planted an experiment right next to it. So what I typically do when I plant seeds is I'll put 2 seeds in a rooter, and then I'll let it see if it's gonna live. and usually one of them at least does pretty good, but this one I'm gonna show you has got 2 seeds. So this kale on the left here is one that I cut off the crown and stuck back in, and you can see where it's at. The one on the right, I planted as a seed at the same time. Okay, so clearly just by propagating it, cutting off the crown, letting it go again, I've got a meal I can eat about a month and a half before I can eat that. So one of the things that we really recommend too is propagating your plants. This basil down here, oh, I think I figured out the light. This basil down here is a lettuce leaf basil. It's pretty enormo. I'm sorry, I've only got so many hands. I'm trying to move this giant kale leaf out of the way. There we go. This lettuce leaf basil was also propagated. So to do that, they hate this, but I'm gonna do it for you. I'm gonna show you the mechanics down here. Okay, so to propagate it, there's this neoprene cloning collar that we put on, and then literally it's just this cutting, and we stick it in the collar, and that's it. There are all the roots. Ooh, this one is getting to be real big. So we're probably gonna cut and propagate it again just to reduce that root mass and reduce how much water it's taking in. And that will allow us to have just a big, beautiful plant that's ready to harvest in much less time than growing from seed. This one over here, this ugly looking thing, is arugula. And there are only so many things I like arugula for, but I've just let this one go. Because when I do want it, I just snip off the top leaves and I've got it. So eventually I'll get that replaced. Here are those strawberries that I was talking about. There's the horseradish. Those are those Japanese onions I was talking about. The African Nun Basil. The Swiss chard sprouts. And the Wasabi Arugula. So that's what I got in here right now. I don't know if I showed you this. This is a Serrano Pepper. It's a baby. We do like to grow though for the first time before we propagate from seed, because when you go to the store, we bought that horseradish and we said, well, let's try some juvenile plants because, starting from seed takes longer, so maybe we can cheat a little bit. But these plants together cost about $15. And I can get, even on the rare seeds, heirloom varieties, I can get 300 seeds for $3 sometimes. So the difference in price is huge. And once you get them started, though, it's super easy to cut them off, stick them back in the tower, and let them go. What's really fun about this, too, though, is that it works also with houseplants. So one of Mandy's towers, we're getting ready to launch another one that's a little bit wider, a little bit shorter. And this works super great with every single houseplant we've tried in it, even succulents. If you check the feed, I thought Mandy was crazy when she put a succulent in there, but it worked. How does the water situation work? Do you change one or is there filtering? Yes. So the water, I need to change this water. So it's got a little bit of stuff in it. I'm going to show you anyway. So this is the bucket. I need to clean that out. It's time. A little embarrassed that you saw that. But there's water in this bucket. There's a small aquarium pump in there, and there's a line behind the wall. You can actually see part of the line sticking out right there. That's hydro tubing, so it's food safe. And it goes all the way up to the top. There's a T branch right up here at the top, and then the water trickles back down inside these pipes, back down to the bucket, and then does it over and over again. So the nutrients are actually enclosed in the water, and or they're dissolved into the water, and that allows the plants to have just the right amount of contact with nutrients, water, and oxygen, so that they actually grow a little faster than they do in dirt. You know, if you have all of your hydroponic settings perfect, they'll grow between 20. They can grow up to 25% faster. Now, if you're using general settings like us and you're growing a lot of different plants and not dialing it in for one species of lettuce, they won't grow 25% faster than in dirt, but they will grow faster. How much on average does it cost to construct? So we actually did a video just a few videos ago that spec'd out, if you were gonna buy all the parts to build it as we did at the hardware store, what you would need to go into it. But we do sell a kit for this on Etsy for $269. And there's also a DIY instruction download though that you can get if you want to source your own parts and try to reduce the cost. We were as honest as possible in combining our cost estimates from the hardware store. So check a couple videos back on the feed. How much does it cost? There's a follow-up to that one. What else do I need? That one will talk about the lights and the other extras, like a fan that you really need to help kind of just keep air circulating. Do you have to clean the PVC going up there to trickle down? To clean it, yeah. I mean, Mandy cleaned hers out after about 6 months, and it wasn't too bad. A little bit of wiping down, and that was it. So it really doesn't get too crazy in there. It's just what you saw in the bucket too was some, I had some roots that were a little bit too long, and they got into the pump. So you just got to wash those things. And it was the fault of the darn basil that I let get too big. I really should have taken that off. We're Mischief and Sunshine on Etsy, just like on TikTok here, and you can find a link in our bio. Unfortunately, Linktree gives you a really weird warning, but it's just to a Linktree where you can see our build instructions on YouTube and our Etsy. Does the pump run 24/7? No, that's a really great question. Let me show you my timer setup. So, whoop, I did DIY this in quarantine, everyone, so it's not as pretty as it could be. But this timer controls the lights. So these go on 12 hours, off 12 hours. This mechanical timer here controls the pump. And how that works is the pump cycles on and off every 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what your preference is. You can go as long as 30. Mechanical timers are that way. Some of them get down to 15. That's great. We like them because they're really inexpensive. You can pick up a mechanical timer like that for like $12. Professional hydroponics will use sprayers, and they'll turn the water on and off every 30 seconds to a minute. That's kind of next level commercial production, need more expensive equipment. So with a $12 tool, I can turn my pump on and off every 15 minutes, and it works, as you can see. So that's the thing. Cool. So a few other people also asked about the lights. A lot of people have asked about the grow lights. So I want to show you those. These straps are custom designed. We had to figure out when we created a vertical garden, I had been lighting plants in my house for a long time. As you can see, I got lights just friggin' all over because this room has one window, and I will show you out my window. There's a building right there. So I get no natural light in here, and the only way that I could grow anything is with these lights. So we had put them horizontally, and how the heck are we gonna do this? So we looked at some options. There's like sun blasters and other things you could mount to your ceiling and just rain everything with light. But these lights are, in my opinion, the cheapest, best ones. I've tried a lot of grow lights before I got to these. I wasted a lot of money on purple things and other stuff that didn't work as well. And I finally found these lights. I fell in love, and then I was like, okay, how can we put them in front of the tower? So this is some really simple, mold resistance fabric. It's kind of like what you have on a backpack strap. These grommets keep these in the pockets. There are several pockets. You can reposition them up and down depending on what you have in your tower, and they work super great. The lights themselves are full spectrum LEDs. So they're T8, is the width. So if you're looking for lights like these, go on Amazon and search for full spectrum T8 LED. That is the best thing to do because the brand names and the prices change a lot. I would typically say you can expect to pay $10 to $15 a piece just for each light. There we go. Get the exposure right. Key hung LED grow light, 24 watt, full spectrum. That 50-60 hertz there is what's killing my shutter and making the weird stripies every time. So these are my best recommended lights. The reason that we say full spectrum is that you can have a light. Oh no, it's timer time. Haha, that one just turned off. I'll apologize. The other one's gonna turn off here too. We say full spectrum because that's more like the sun. And plants are green, so they reflect they reflect the green light and they absorb red and blue light. So the lights themselves have to be able to produce lots of red and lots of blue light. If you buy a shop light, it doesn't have a lot of those in the spectrum. It might work for your house plants, but if you're growing produce, we tried it, it doesn't work. There's a video on the feed. It's just pretty sad if you don't have the full spectrum light, so that's why we recommend those. It's Catty Cat asked, why do you have wood behind your setup? Well, so I put the wood in front of the setup. The original idea I had for this was a DIY pegboard that I saw on a Home Depot online tutorial. It was like, get a piece of plywood and make these holes in it and stick pegs in it. And I'm like, oh, I have a boring bedroom, I could do that. And then I'm like, oh, I want to put my hydro system in my room too. I wonder if I could just put it behind. So I did that to cover up the pipes that are behind. You can certainly leave them exposed. We like the idea of a cover because it kind of just shields any of the light from the PVC, although that's not really an issue. The biggest issue with PVC is if it gets UV sunlight on it, that can be really damaging to the PVC. And so these don't have any UV light in them, so they're okay. But just cover it up because exposure to light over time can, break it down. So if you're gonna use it for a long time, we recommend covering it up. Do the lights get hot? Well, not that hot. Got my hand on it. It's a little warm, I'd say. But they're LEDs, so they stay pretty cool. They do produce a little bit of heat. I mean, it's a little warm, but it's nothing crazy. So, cool. Thanks again for joining. And so what's really cool about this concept is, I think too, because the water is constantly moving. So it starts in that bucket, goes up behind, falls back down, and does that over and over again. And because the water's constantly moving, there's a lot of oxygen around the roots and there's a lot of water rushing past them, which means that they don't really get root rot. I've never had root rot in the tower. I've had root rot in my hydroponic plants that are in jars. So the ones that are in jars, if I get lazy, if I don't change the water enough, it smells horrible. My son actually gives me such a hard time because it makes the whole apartment stink if I've got root rot. So never in the tower though, because there's oxygen all the time. And the only time I have root rot in the containers is when the containers is when I don't change the water enough. Cool. How long do you give them light exposure? So 12 hours a day on, 12 hours off. They do need dark. Mandy does 18 on, 6 off for hers. But plants do need dark to complete their life cycle. If you give them light forever, they will crisp up and die. It's like they need to sleep. Is it by a pump? Yeah, there's a pump in the bucket. It's a 400 gallon per hour pump, which means that it's rated to push water up 8 feet. That's really why that is that 400 gallons per hour. It just means it can push the water up to the top of the tower so it can fall back down again. Thoughts on the Kelvin of the grow lights? Yes, the Kelvin. So Kelvin, if you're unfamiliar, is a measure of, well, it's a measure of a couple of things, but in this case, it's a measure of the what kind of oranginess or the bluiness of a light. So high Kelvin numbers, bluish light, low Kelvin numbers, like tungsten, 3200, more orangish light. So these are pretty orangey. They're very tungstenish. And And it doesn't actually, yeah, the Kelvin doesn't matter. What matters is what the spectrum of light is put out by that grow light. So you could see light as 3200 Kelvin, but it could be a mix of different reds and blues and greens. And so the Kelvin is way less important than the actual spectrum that the light is putting out. We actually ordered some spectrum, some special spectrum filters, and we're gonna show you what that means by breaking apart the color spectrum on these lights versus some others. So stay tuned. Yes, the Kelvin doesn't matter. What matters more is the spectrum that's coming out of those lights. Because again, plants are green, they reflect green light, they need red and blue light the most, although they do take all of the other colors, but red and blue are the most important for different stages of the growth cycle. So that's why we say full spectrum all the time. Cool. That's also why a lot of grow lights are purple, because they, it's actually a combination of blue and red. So that's my hydroponic system. Yeah, warm. This is the warm one. This is the warmest one. It's about 3200. So these are warm white. If you search for these on Amazon, again, this brand happens to be Kihung, but Biana, a couple of others are there. Whew. What would the bare minimum be you need to do this on a tight budget? Yikes. That's a tough question because there's a lot of variables. So if you're able to, like that bucket right there is incredibly convenient. It's the perfect size. It's got a hinged lid. It's food safe. It's $18. Can't get around that. But if you have a food safe bucket that you could source from a bakery, well, there you go. It's free. So it's really difficult to say exactly what you could do. The hardest part is just making sure that everything is food safe. So PVC, according to the FDA, totally food safe. We can use it in hydroponics, especially in this application. But other things like some people have been, well, can I use PEX tubing? No, please don't use PEX tubing. PEX tubing would be bad because it's not food safe. So to do this on a tight budget, we do have a DIY instruction kit and a list of all the materials. We did do a video speccing out how much it would cost to build one if you were to purchase everything on your own from the dollar store and the hardware store, and the cheapest places you could find it probably locally and online. And that video is how much does it cost? It's on the feed a couple of videos back, and there's another one that's what else do I need that talks about the lights and the other thing. So part of the challenge is that half the setup cost comes in the lights and the other stuff. But once you have those up, they last for a really long time and they end up paying for themselves. As opposed to, when we first did this, we wanted to buy a system. We had no intention of building one. We looked, and the ones that did everything for you were easily 500, some of them 1200. So yeah, is the PVC, yeah, no, there's no UV light. I'm sorry, I did a terrible job of explaining that earlier. There's no UV light in these. So the PVC gets damaged from the UV light that is carried by the sun. It's the ultraviolet light that we can't see on that part of the spectrum. These lights are incapable of producing that kind of light. And so yes, totally the PVC is safe. We just like to go an extra mile and be like, well, we're gonna just cover it even more just to be double sure. So if you wanna see how the lights are hung, right now I have these in a, just hanging on my ceiling. I needed to get longer dowels. I started them too close. I cut my dowels too short and I ran out of dowel. So I improvised and drilled a hole into my ceiling, intending to build a longer dowel, and well, they just stayed there. So there are a couple of different ways. You can use brackets and use a post like that at the top to secure your lights, or you can just anchor them to the ceiling and then position them appropriately. What's the fastest growing plant? So I would say that herbs are way the fastest. The basils, the arugula, once it gets established, it just, whew, that one especially, that guy. Herbs, once they get established, they just blow up. Some things like cabbage, the cabbage I pulled off the wall, I was ready to pull that thing off the wall several times because it was so slow compared to my other stuff. Does it get humid in here? We get that question a lot. I mean, this building is kind of, we live in a humid area and this building is humid anyway. But we do some testing around with our hydrometer. It's not really any different in here than it is other places in the building. And the reason for that is there's only 3 gallons of water in there. So it's way less than a fish tank. It's a closed system. The water isn't going anywhere. And so where would the humidity come from? It would be evaporating out of the plants. But I think, these 12 here give off a little, but the massive jungle corner over here is giving off way more humidity when I move my hydrometer over here than the tower is. So really just depends. Plants all give off some humidity, but so it's not really coming from the water because it's closed and it doesn't escape. Is the wall hinged? Originally, yes, it was planned to be, and then they didn't have the parts, and so I've had to remove the screws on the wall and put it back up because I didn't get that done. Although, in this apartment, it's a temporary situation, so I was kind of okay to not put those hinges in there. Yeah. Does anybody want to see my other room? I'll take you out there for a second, and I can hop back to the hydro stuff. If you got hydro questions, let me know. I'll show you some of my other plants out here. I'm in Nebraska. It's very humid here in the summers. So here's our my jungle corner. This is a Philodendron Gigantum. I don't know if I'm saying that right. This is Tina, like Belcher. Behind is Brett the Hitman Hart, that giant Monstera that kind of goes all the way. I've got some rescue Monsteras here that I planted up in water. These I did cuttings of. Because a plant shop had left it for dead, and I'm like, I'll take it for $5. And so, as you can see, definitely not dead. Over here is Ludwig, my Calathea ornata beauty star. At least I think that's what it is, if I remember right. Got a couple of other hydro plants here. This little guy growing in some water. Ooh, I love those roots. Over here, most of my stuff, this is another rescue Monstera. I think I have 8 Monstera deliciosas in here. Here's a little Adansonii. What lights are we using? Yeah, they're full spectrum T8 LEDs. This is my Orchid. This thing has been blooming since November. It just keeps going. I don't know. I feel bad because I haven't fed it much, but it's going. Oh, okay. So on the someone asked, serious question: is a hydroponic indoor garden possible with a cat in the house? Oh, that's up to your cat, I think. I am personally allergic to kitties. I think they would be the best pet for me because I could just kind of hang out with them when I wanted to and then not when I didn't. But I can't have one, so I don't know. I've heard kitties are pretty naughty though, so I'm not sure. As long as you keep the cat out of it, I think so. Will you eventually plant them in dirt? No, nope. My plan is to keep them growing in hydro for forever. They actually, for me, grow faster, and I appreciate that all I have to do is change this water. I don't have to think about, hey, are you, have you even checked the soil, all that. I just change the water, and they keep growing and are happy. And I also get to style them like this. Like, it's crazy. It's silly. I showed this earlier, but there it is. Just getting started. New growth. It must be spring. Yeah, I'll show my raft. It's got a couple of leaves that are deciding to give up right now. I don't know what that's about. But for the lighting setup, yeah, they're full spectrum Keyhung T8s. If you look on Amazon, basically I just kind of tried to figure out what I needed for what spaces. This is definitely overlit. I got to be honest. Some of these, I had to really back off on some of the lights. But trial and error, and there you get to where you are. So, yeah. How do you provide nutrients to your plants? Yes, so like anything in a jar. This guy there's nutrients actually dissolved into the water. So the plant roots get access to the water and the nutrients they need. The pH is adjusted so they can absorb it, and they're super happy. So this, someone asked, if I grow food. Yeah, actually, we were just back in my bedroom a minute ago looking at my home hydroponic garden. I can give you a quick look at that. Just go back in here. There's my home hydroponic garden. African Nun Basil, some Japanese Swiss chard, some Japanese onions, I can't remember what they're called, Wasabi Arugula, horseradish, strawberries. There's a tiny pepper plant in there, a couple of kales here, a lettuce leaf, basil, and an arugula. So, yeah. It's the brown stuff in the vessel. Oh, yeah, let's talk about leca. So this is called lightweight expanded clay aggregate, leca. Shoop. So they're just tiny clay balls. I'll get one. It's just a very light clay thing. I'm not doing these crack key in a way that there's a way to do hydro where you actually separate out you put the plant in leca and then you put the water below and you put a net cup or something that separates the roots in the leca from the water at the bottom. I'm not doing that, but the leca in here really doesn't do a ton. It just kind of provides some structure to the roots, and it allows me to position the plants in the way that I want to. So I'll come back out here and show you the one that I have positioned up here. So this has a really long root. I don't know if you can see it. Maybe. It's right there in the middle. It's sticking down, and then it comes back up, and I was able to put it on here because the leca's, holding it in place, and I think it looks cool. So primarily leca support for the roots, sure, but more because I think it's pretty. Good resource to learn hydroponics. We tried really hard to link all the videos that we found useful on curated playlists on our YouTube. So check out our YouTube page. The link's in the bio. I know Linktree does this weird warning before you can actually go to our page. But yeah, there's a bunch of resources on YouTube to get you started. What are good started aqua plants? Well, if you want to grow your plants hydroponically, it's the one you have. No plant that we've put in hydro has done poorly, but certainly some are better than others. So probably a good starter plant would be something like this one, this Pothos. So everybody's seen this, the money plant, very, very common epipremnum. But if you give this a good cut on a node here, you can see this is an aerial root. It will become a real root. So if you just drop this in some water, just like you would to propagate it, but then leave it in the water and put some nutrients in the water and then just never take it out. This one has an interesting story. I actually got this as a cutting. I let it grow in water for, about 6 months. Decided to put it in dirt then, cut it apart, put it in here. And this plant has in various cuttings and stages in its life lived in both water and dirt. Not the same roots though. One of the things about water roots that I do want to say is these water roots are like the trust fund babies of the root world. They don't have to work for anything. This leca is light. It's not like dirt and soil that's heavy and they don't have to push anything out of the way. So they just get to exist. They don't have to work for water because they're sitting in it. So if I took these cuttings right now with the roots as long as they are and I dropped it in dirt, in about 3 days, it would be dead. And that's because the roots just aren't hard enough to make it work in the soil. So there's a way to transition them to soil. You use sphagnum moss. Be really careful where you source your sphagnum because there's some bad harvesting practices. But if I put this in sphagnum moss for a couple of months, then I could plant it in dirt, but I love it in hydro, so I'm going to keep doing that. Where did I get the glass ball for my orchid? Actually, this was a part of a weird gift from an office thing. It was an air plant deal. But I needed a space for this orchid, so I stuffed some moss in there, and I stuffed the orchid in there, and I'm like, well, I hope it lives. The craziest thing, this sphagnum moss is coming back alive. That is not an orchid. That is moss that I thought was dead. that is coming back to life. You can actually see on the bottom, those are not orchid roots. Those are the sphagnum. So yeah, I don't know. This orchid also is, I don't know. This is my first orchid, and it gave me a keiki. I've got that in my bedroom, and this has been blooming since November. I've never fed it. I don't know what kind of black magic is happening, but yeah. So I just love the pink flowers. Also, my Hoya, just because I'm excited. This girl's getting ready to flower again. Oh, look at those. I love it. So one of the really nice things about these bright lights, though, is they just tend to make everything flower. Yeah, I do give it water. Yep. Sorry, yeah, no, I haven't not watered it. Yeah, the moss is helping it, absolutely. I didn't realize that. Yeah, Hoya blooms are the best. This one is about to bloom for the first time. It's got it right there. Oh my gosh. There is really, really tiny. I remember the first time I saw some of those buds on a Hoya, I screamed, and my partner Mandy thought that there was an intruder in the house because I was just so excited. I don't know what I'm doing with this Hoya. It just hasn't done as well for me, just figuring itself out. But somebody asked, is your light bill high? No. I mean, I think I spent an average an extra with all these lights, like $8 to $10 with all these lights. Yeah. It really depends on your area, but if you want to know what the hydroponic system actually uses, I'll go show that again, which is what we're talking about the most. But this, I have a modified version because I wanted it to be up higher. The kit that we have actually has 16 plant sites. This only has 12. So I took a couple of rows out so that I could fit it, prettily. What? That's not a word, Andrew. So I could fit it within the line of the same holes as my pegboard. So I modified it to fit this space. So the light bill, yeah. So, but sorry, where I was getting at, the lights themselves and the pump, if you consider everything together for the main system, and that's with 8 lights, it's 246 watts a day for 12 hours. So someone also just asked, do you leave the lights on for 24 hours? No. Plants need dark to complete their life cycles. So if it's not dark, your plants will fry and be dead. They need to, I said earlier, sleep, I guess. So it's important for them to be off. So if you're thinking about electricity and what's a kilowatt hour cost in your area, to run this system, 246 watts for 12 hours a day is the exact answer. Because I have these lights on a 12 on, 12 off, and also the pump is half on, half off. So the other thing about the pump in the bucket is that it cycles on and off every 15 minutes. So it's on for, at the end of the day, 12 hours, if you add all those little things up. Are there any plant lights you recommend? Yeah, I've talked about these before, but I always say if you're going to grow your food with these lights, get the full spectrum ones. Shop lights, others. Try to get the whole wall in here. Here, I'll pan there. So shop lights, others that aren't full spectrum, they won't actually help these plants grow that fast. We did a test with some not full spectrum lights and lettuce, and it was abysmal. It was terrible. So we recommend the full spectrum ones. These are LEDs. They're 24 watts. We found these on Amazon. These are the cheapest, best ones that I've found. These were branded as Key Hung. Again, T8s. They're about $10 to $15 a piece, depending on when you're looking. And that said, the brand names, everything changed quite a bit. I have a feeling that there's probably one factory in China that's making all of these. And they're just putting them under different names and selling them under different places on Amazon. But that's really the best place to look. Well, hey, everybody, my phone is at 5%, so I'm really sad, but I've got to head out. Thank you. Electricity way up? No, I think for this system, we've said, between $5 and $15 a month, depending on where you live, probably closer to the 5. But anyway, I need to head out because my phone is going to die and do it for me. Thank you to everybody who joined me. Mandy and I do this live 11:30 Central US time every Thursday. So 11:30 Central, we will be live and my face will be on the screen. Right now I'm very sad and tired and dirty, so I'm not going to show you. But we answer all of your hydroponics questions. We can help you out. So join us on Thursday at 11:30 Central if you want to. We're hanging out every time. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great night, everybody.